Have you ever noticed how one negative comment can ruin your entire day, while 10 compliments disappear from your memory almost instantly? Why do we replay awkward conversations over and over again, even when we know we can't change what happened? Why does happiness seem to fade so quickly, no matter how hard we've worked to achieve it? Most people think the answer is stress, or a lack of discipline, maybe even bad luck. But what if the real reason is something you've been carrying with you your entire life? What if the biggest source of your anxiety, your overthinking, and even your unhappiness, is the very organ that's supposed to keep you alive? Your brain. Now, before you think your brain is broken, it's actually doing exactly what it was designed to do. The problem is, it wasn't designed for the world you live in today. Over the next few minutes, you'll discover why your brain naturally focuses on the negative, why achieving your biggest goals rarely makes you happy for long, and why a simple mental shift can completely change the way you experience your thoughts. But to understand all of that, we have to travel back in time. Not 100 years. Not 1,000. More than 100,000 years ago. Imagine you're walking alone through a dense forest. No roads. No cities. No smartphones. Just silence. Suddenly, you hear something move in the bushes. You freeze. Your heart starts racing. Your muscles tense. Your breathing becomes shallow. You have only two choices. Run. Or stay. Now imagine there are two different people. The first one assumes the worst. There must be a predator. He turns around and runs without looking back. The second person smiles. It's probably just the wind. Which one is more likely to survive? The answer is obvious. Even if the first person was wrong 99 times. That one moment when the danger was real could save his life. Evolution didn't reward the happiest people. It rewarded the most cautious ones. The people who noticed danger before everyone else. The people who expected something to go wrong. Generation after generation. Those brains survived. And eventually, they became our brains. Which means that, even today, your mind is still running software that was written for a world filled with predators. Only now, the predators have changed. Their deadlines. Unread messages. Social media. Financial pressure. The fear of failure. And your brain reacts to many of them as if your life still depends on escaping the forest. Once you understand why, everything else begins to make sense. If your brain evolved to detect danger, then here's something even more surprising. It doesn't just notice negative information. It gives it priority. Imagine posting a photo online. Over the next few hours, you receive 100 positive comments. People tell you that you look great. They compliment your work. They encourage you to keep going. Then, buried somewhere in the middle, one person writes, "This isn't that impressive." Now ask yourself, which comment will you still remember tonight? For most people, it's not the 99 positive ones. It's the single negative comment. And that's not because you're weak. It's because your brain believes criticism might contain useful information for survival. Thousands of years ago, ignoring a warning could be fatal. Ignoring a compliment never was. So your brain developed a simple rule. Negative information deserves more attention. Psychologists call this the negativity bias. It's one of the most powerful cognitive tendencies we have. Bad experiences leave deeper emotional footprints than good ones. One embarrassing moment can stay with you for years. A single argument can overshadow an otherwise perfect day. One failure can make you question your abilities, even after dozens of successes. And here's the part most people never realize. The world around you has learned to exploit this feature of your brain. Turn on the news. What do you see? Natural disasters. Conflict. Economic uncertainty. Crime. Breaking alerts. Every headline competes for one thing. Your attention. And nothing captures attention faster than potential danger. Social media works the same way. Outrage spreads faster than calm. Fear spreads faster than hope. Controversy spreads faster than agreement. Because every platform is competing for the same ancient survival system that evolved inside your brain long before the internet existed. The result? Your mind slowly begins to believe that the world is more dangerous than it actually is. Not because reality has changed, but because your attention is constantly being pulled toward the negative. This creates an invisible filter. You stop noticing what's going well. You become hyper-aware of everything that could go wrong. And over time, that changes the way you experience everyday life. But here's where the story takes an unexpected turn. Even when something wonderful finally happens, your brain has another trick waiting for you. A mechanism so powerful that it can make your biggest dream feel ordinary. And once you understand how it works, you'll never look at happiness the same way again. Think about the last time you really wanted something. Maybe it was a new phone. A promotion. A bigger apartment. A new relationship. Or perhaps it was a goal you spent years chasing. 4 weeks. Or even months. Your mind kept telling you the same story. Once I have this, I'll finally feel happy. Then the day finally arrived. You bought it. You achieved it. You celebrated. For a moment, everything felt different. Life seemed brighter. The excitement was real. But then, something strange happened. A few days passed. Then a few weeks. And slowly, almost without noticing it, that incredible feeling began to disappear. The thing that once felt extraordinary became normal. The dream became routine. And your attention quietly shifted toward the next thing you didn't have. If you've experienced this, you're not alone. In fact, your brain was expecting it all along. Psychologists call this hedonic adaptation. It's your brain's remarkable ability to adjust to almost any improvement in your life. This ability is incredibly useful for survival. Imagine if every positive experience overwhelmed your emotions forever. You'd quickly lose the ability to focus on new challenges. Instead, your brain resets your emotional baseline. It says, "Great. We've solved that problem. Now let's find the next one." From an evolutionary perspective, this makes perfect sense. A brain that stayed completely satisfied would stop exploring. It would stop improving. It would stop searching for food, shelter, opportunities, and safety. Contentment was never the priority. Progress was. But in the modern world, this ancient survival strategy creates an endless cycle. We convince ourselves that happiness is just one achievement away. One more raise. One more purchase. One more milestone. One more success. And every time we reach it, our brain quietly moves the finish line. Not because we're ungrateful. Not because we're doing something wrong. But because our nervous system quickly turns today's miracle into tomorrow's normal. That's why people can accomplish dreams they once thought were impossible. And still feel as if something is missing. But here's the fascinating part. If your brain adapts this quickly to good things, what does it spend the rest of its time doing? The answer reveals one of the brain's most powerful abilities. And it's happening inside your mind every single second, whether you notice it or not. Right now, as you're listening to this, your brain is doing something extraordinary. Something so automatic that most people never notice it. Your brain is predicting the future. Not tomorrow. Not next year. The next few seconds. Every moment of your life, your brain is building models of reality. It constantly asks, what happens next? What should I expect? What could go wrong? And here's the surprising part. You don't experience reality first. You experience your brain's prediction of reality. Think about what happens before a job interview. Hours before it even begins, your mind starts creating scenarios. You imagine forgetting your words. You imagine awkward silence. You imagine rejection. None of these things have happened. Yet your body responds as if they're already real. Your heart beats faster. Your stomach tightens. Your palms sweat. Why? Because the brain doesn't wait for danger. It prepares for it. The same thing happens before a first date. Before an exam. Before an important phone call. Before pressing send on a message you've rewritten 10 times. Your brain begins running simulations. Thousands of years ago, this ability helped humans survive. The people who anticipated danger had an advantage. If you expected a predator behind the bushes, you were more likely to stay alive. But in the modern world, the threats have changed. The brain still uses the same strategy. Only now it's predicting social rejection, failure, embarrassment, judgment, loss. And because your brain's primary mission is protection, it tends to focus on the worst-case scenario. Not the most likely scenario. The safest one. This is why anxiety often feels so convincing. It arrives wearing the disguise of certainty. It doesn't say, this might happen. It says, this is going to happen. And the more emotional the prediction becomes, the more real it feels. But here's something incredibly important. Just because your brain predicts something, doesn't mean it's true. A prediction is not reality. A thought is not a fact. And learning the difference between those two things can completely change the way you experience your life. In fact, there's one simple question that psychologists use to create that separation. A question so simple that many people dismiss it immediately. Yet once you start using it, you may never look at your thoughts the same way again. And that's exactly what we'll explore next. So, if your brain is constantly making predictions, how do you stop those predictions from controlling your life? Surprisingly, the answer isn't positive thinking. It's not repeating affirmations. And it's definitely not trying to force yourself to stop worrying. In fact, the harder you try to suppress a thought, the stronger it often becomes. Instead, psychologists suggest something much simpler. The next time a stressful thought appears, don't argue with it. Don't fight it. Don't try to replace it with a happier thought. Just ask one question. Is this a fact, or is it a prediction? At first, it sounds almost too simple. But let's see what happens. Imagine you're about to give a presentation. A thought pops into your mind. Everyone is going to think I'm terrible. Pause for a second. Is that a fact? Or is it a prediction? The answer is obvious. It's a prediction. Now imagine you're waiting for someone to reply to your message. Hours go by. Your mind starts whispering. They're ignoring me. Again. Is that a fact? Or is it a prediction? Maybe they're busy. Maybe they haven't seen the message. Maybe they're thinking about what to say. The truth is, you don't know. Now imagine you're starting a new project. Your brain says, this is going to fail. Ask the same question. Fact. Or prediction. Notice what happens. The thought doesn't magically disappear. But something else changes. For the first time, you begin to observe the thought. Instead of becoming the thought, That small gap is incredibly powerful. Because the moment you recognize a thought as a mental prediction, it loses some of its authority. You stop treating every anxious story as undeniable truth. Instead, you become curious. You begin asking, what evidence do I actually have? Is there another explanation? What if my brain is simply trying to protect me? This shift may seem tiny, but over time, it changes the relationship you have with your own mind. You no longer believe every sentence your brain produces. You learn to listen, without automatically obeying. And once that happens, something remarkable begins to emerge. You realize that you are not your thoughts. You are the one who notices them. And that realization may be one of the most freeing discoveries a person can make. But if that's true, then who are you, beyond the constant stream of thoughts inside your head? That's the question we'll answer next. For most of your life, you've probably believed that the voice inside your head is you. It comments on everything. It judges. It compares. It worries. It reminds you of embarrassing moments from years ago. It predicts disasters that never happen. And because that voice has been there for as long as you can remember, it feels like your identity. But what if it isn't? Think about it for a moment. If you can notice your thoughts, who is doing the noticing? Imagine sitting beside a busy highway. Cars rush past every second. Some are loud. Some are quiet. Some are beautiful. Some are damaged. But no matter what kind of car passes by, you remain on the side of the road. Your thoughts work in much the same way. Some are helpful. Some are creative. Some are inspiring. Others are anxious, critical, or completely irrational. The problem begins when you step into every passing car and let it decide where you're going. One fearful thought appears, and suddenly you're imagining the worst possible future. One critical thought appears, and you begin questioning your entire self-worth. One uncomfortable memory returns, and it feels as if you're living that moment all over again. But here's the truth. A thought is an event. Not a command. Not a prophecy. And certainly not your identity. Your brain produces thousands of thoughts every single day. Many of them contradict each other. Some are useful. Many are simply noise. Your mind generates ideas the same way your heart pumps blood. It's part of what it does. That doesn't mean every thought deserves your trust. Or your attention. The real skill isn't learning how to stop thinking. That's impossible. The real skill is learning which thoughts deserve to be followed, and which ones should simply be allowed to pass. The moment you stop treating every anxious prediction as absolute truth, something changes. You create space. Space between the thought and your reaction. And inside that space, you discover something powerful. Choice. You may not control the first thought that enters your mind, but you can influence what happens next. You can decide whether to feed it, question it, or simply let it drift away. That simple shift doesn't eliminate fear. It doesn't erase anxiety overnight. But it does something even more important. It gives you back control. And once you realize that, you begin to see your mind in an entirely different way. Not as an enemy that needs to be defeated, but as an ancient survival system, doing its best to protect you in a world it was never designed for. And that understanding changes everything. So let's go back to the question we started with. Why does your brain make you feel anxious? Why does it hold on to painful memories? And why does happiness seem to disappear so quickly? The answer isn't because your brain is broken. It's because your brain has priorities. And happiness was never at the top of the list. For hundreds of thousands of years, your ancestors didn't survive by feeling calm. They survived by paying attention. By noticing danger before it arrived. By expecting problems before they happened. The brain you carry today is the result of that history. It's an incredible machine. It can learn languages. Create art. Solve impossible problems. Imagine the future. But it also carries ancient survival instincts that don't always fit the modern world. That's why a difficult email can feel like a life-threatening event. Why an awkward conversation can replay in your head for days. Why your mind keeps searching for what's missing, instead of appreciating what you already have. None of this means you're weak. And it certainly doesn't mean you're failing. It means you're human. The moment you understand how your brain works, you stop fighting yourself. Instead of asking, "Why am I like this?" you begin asking, "What is my brain trying to protect me from?" That single shift changes everything. Because awareness creates choice. And choice creates freedom. You may never stop your brain from producing fearful thoughts. But you don't have to believe every story it tells. You don't have to confuse predictions with facts. And you don't have to spend your life chasing a version of happiness that's always just over the horizon. The goal isn't to silence your mind. The goal is to understand it. Because once you understand it, you stop becoming its prisoner. But there's one final piece of the puzzle. If your brain isn't designed to make you happy, then why does it keep pushing you toward your phone? Toward endless scrolling. Toward procrastination. And toward habits you know aren't good for you? The answer lies in one of the most powerful chemicals in the human brain. A chemical that quietly influences almost every decision you make. And once you understand how it works, you'll never look at motivation, addiction, or success the same way again. That's exactly what we'll explore in the next video.